Mike Arnold joins us on The Truth today. He says that Nigeria is the epicenter for radical Islam and the war for global order. I'm really surprised to hear that, frankly, Mike. Welcome to The Truth. How does Nigeria acclaim such notoriety as the epicenter for global order? I'm shocked.
Most people don't realize that Nigeria is the sixth largest nation on earth
Wow.
and is on track by 2030 to be the third largest nation on earth by 2050. By 2050, 1 in 13 human beings will be Nigerian. Their average age is just 18.2. So with the rest of the world aging and having the baby boom issue, Nigeria has the youth, and it's booming. It's also one of the top 5 members of OPEC. They have $1 trillion in mineral reserves, the minerals of the future, the lithium, the rare earth elements. And it's a very strategic location. They produce more films each year than Hollywood does. You've probably watched Nigerian movies on Netflix and didn't even know they came from Nigeria. And their music dominates the streaming charts. It's a very vibrant, fast-growing nation with a trajectory to be extremely influential in the future. The question is, which direction is that trajectory going to go? And there's a battle for the soul of the country right now. It was Michael Langley, the head of AFRICOM last year. General Langley, in front of Congress, said Nigeria is the epicenter for global terror today. But there's so much more than that going on. It's a most important nation on earth that most Americans can't find on a map.
Well, you are exactly right. I had to ask Anthony, who is, some people go to the internet for knowledge. I go to my producer, Anthony, and he said it was in Northwest Africa. Is that accurate?
It's west. It's west. It's the Gulf
West,
of Guinea,
west.
where it's notched out. It sits right there in the corner of the Gulf of Guinea, and it's a large nation. It's actually about a fourth of the population of the continent of Africa is in Nigeria.
Wow. And somebody who's made 16 trips there, you should know. So let me ask you, I mean, when you introduced Nigeria to us a moment ago, you laid out what sounds like a country that is based on capitalism, which would seem to be antithetical to a Muslim or a state that is grounded in Islam. Can you reconcile those differences for us?
Absolutely. And if you're familiar with the fictional country from the Marvel universe, Wakanda, which has this holographic image of this decrepit little country, but underneath it, it's like this vibrant civilization. Nigeria is the opposite of it. Nigeria is an Islamic regime, completely and totally, with the disguise of a secular democracy. Now, how can I say that? Going back to history, first of all, the founding of Nigeria, the core of it still today is the Sokoto Caliphate. It was the largest pre-colonial empire in Africa, built on jihad, built on genocide, built on slavery, the Sokoto Caliphate. And there's a reason Trump bombed Sokoto on Christmas Day. It was symbolic. That caliphate, when the British got control of that region, that was in the north. The south has been vibrant, Christian, English-speaking, very entrepreneurial. At one point in time, before it was destroyed, it was the fastest-growing economic region on earth for 10 years running. So the south is a vibrant. That's what they put forward. The south, the Lagos, the entrepreneurial south, but the control of the nation is rigged so that the jihad caliphate controls it. Their constitution, which was written by a northern military dictator, a radical Islamist dictator, wrote their current constitution. It mentions Sharia and Islamic terms 165 times, and not one Christian term. The whole constitution and nation is jerry-rigged so that the control stays in the imams in the north, while all the resources, the oil, is in the south. So it's all nationalized. The south gets none of the mineral wealth, none of the oil. They get the pollution, they get the corruption, while the jihad, genocide north controls the nation. And it controls it to this day. That's why it's the number one nation on earth today for Christian genocide by a factor of 10. More
Ah,
than 125,000 Christians killed there in the last decade.
well, who's doing it? Is it the government or is it just radical um, terrorists that want to, quote, cleanse the nation, end quote?
Well, it's a mix of things. There's four primary drivers that I've been able to identify. First of all, the Chinese. So Nigeria, when you stand in Nigeria, a whole lot starts to make sense because so many of these, it's like a petri dish. These global forces, nefarious forces, have been able to operate there with impunity for so long that they've overextended and they're very exposed. So the Chinese, according to the Nigerian government's own documentation, is looting upwards of $9 billion a year in minerals. And at least 10% of that goes to pay, it is documented, they pay rent to the jihadis. A lot of these villages, I was in the village of Bokos in 2024, a couple months after the Christmas massacre that happened there. 300 Christians hacked to death. And instead of Christians there, you see mounds of dirt where the Chinese came in and strip mined after the jihadis cleared out the area. That's not inconsistent. I mean, look at the maps of where the attacks are taking place. It overlays with the mineral maps. So the Chinese are enabling it, funding it. They pay the generals to mess up, turn away, and not intervene. And the 900 million plus more a year just from that one source flows to the capital. It buys a lot of silence. It buys a lot of complicity. At the same time, the leaders of the nation are fully in line with the ideology of the jihadis. Recent comments, the guy in charge of security in the nation calls these murderers prodigal sons. The other officials call them our brothers in the bush. They are completely ideologically aligned with it. The Chinese are funding it. It's also a major transit hub for heroin. Now, heroin, you may not realize, funds, they say, up to 37% of global jihad is funded by the heroin trade.
And what percentage did you say? A third?
37%. And it's all comes out of Afghanistan, that area. And you can research that it funds a huge portion of global jihad. Nigeria's current president, he goes by the name Bola Tinubu, but nobody knows his real name. His whole background is a mystery. He has 3 different official birth dates. One of his college diplomas is for a female. So complete mystery man. He was forced to leave the United States. He was in South Chicago the same time as Obama and Axelrod, and was a heroin kingpin. He wrote a check for $500,000 to the DEA and fled the country. That's the current president, a heroin kingpin. So, and he's being shielded by the CIA even to this day.
Wait a second. You're saying that Bola what?
Tinubu
gets his money from engaging in the heroin trade.
It's documented in the past that he has, absolutely.
Okay. And you're saying that he is being enabled, protected, sponsored, I don't know what the word is, by our own CIA?
Well, I'll tell you the specifics. There are some 2,500 pages of DEA court documents in these proceedings in which he was booted out of the country after forfeiting $500,000 to the DEA. A federal judge has ordered the release of 2,500 pages of documents, and the CIA filed a brief using the same language that it uses to cover current assets, saying it would harm U.S. interests if we release these documents about this president of Nigeria. The CIA intervened to stop the release of documents ordered by a judge to protect this president of Nigeria. Yeah.
Where did that? And this was a court case.
Yeah, it's been ordered by a judge. Yeah.
And where?
Here in the United States. Yeah, there's a U.S. federal judge that ordered the release of 2,500 pages of documents pertaining to President Tinubu's DEA issues back in the 90s, and it's being blocked by the CIA. The release is being blocked.
Well, how does the CIA block a judicial order?
Well, they filed a brief, and it's been held up. The documents have not been released, and the CIA filed a brief that says that this guy effectively is an asset. It's the same language they use when they protect assets.
My God. I mean, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but it's like every time I turn over a rock where there's a bad odor, the CIA is underneath it. In so many contexts. It's really disturbing to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, our own government has created this monster. And it's so, I feel almost disloyal by calling them a monster because, you know, right now they, I think, have done such remarkable work in Iran. I mean, they clearly destabilized the country, leading to what they hoped would be regime change. And then when that didn't work, they somehow got Trump to go in there and clean out the leadership, like 3 levels down. And now, just this week, we entered a 2-week disarmament, basically. We're not going to bomb each other. So I don't know. It's so hard to, you can't paint the CIA with a broad brush. But I cannot figure out where the puppet masters are. I mean, Brennan, Comey, Clapper, yeah. But there must be more because they're gone. But you kind of get the sense that they're gone, but they're not, maybe. I don't know. It's a community.
Yeah, it's called the deep state for a reason. And, you know, like any government agency, a lot of what's going on today depends on who's in the Oval Office. Of course, there are those rogue elements that are going to undermine that. But the president does have influence. But what about the appointees from previous administrations? They're still there. They're still in power. They're the rogue elements. If you asked who the architect is, at least in Nigerian context, I can tell you exactly what it is. It's Barack Obama. This genocide, this current jihad did not exist until Obama unleashed it on purpose. So in an accidental twist of history, Nigeria ended up in 2010 with a Christian Southern president. He was not supposed to be the president. He was a token vice president. Then the president got sick and died. And so Goodluck Jonathan took office. And it was like LBJ, you know, becoming president. It was the year before the election, and so he was swept in to be the president. Well, that's not supposed to happen in Nigeria. It's rigged so that would never happen. This was right during the Arab Spring time when Obama was flipping a lot of nations towards radical Islam. So there was a radical northern warlord, Muhammad Buhari, who had been a former military dictator. There was a perennial presidential candidate, never got anywhere with it. He had been on the record calling for global Sharia law, on the record calling for Sharia law across Nigeria at any cost. This guy all of a sudden emerged. And oh, by the way, he was also the man that Boko Haram, the terrorist group, requested that he be the guy that mediates for them with the federal government. So he's a friend of Boko Haram. All of a sudden, at the time when Jonathan had traction, it was the only nation on earth where radical Islam was being pushed back. But all of a sudden, on the surface, they start losing. Boko Haram attacks villages, drives people out of their homes, starts these massacres, kidnaps the Chibok girls, all that stuff. And Jonathan is painted as being weak on terror. Obama comes out publicly for Buhari, and Buhari takes office. Behind the scenes, here's what happened, and it's documented. First of all, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, refused to label Boko Haram a terrorist organization, even though they blew up the UN headquarters and all that. Then Obama pulled our support of the Nigerians' fight against terror on the auspices that they didn't support gay marriage, so we can't support them. So he blocked them then from, they tried to go to Israel, they tried to go to South Africa. He blocked them from getting support. And guess who was Buhari's on-the-record campaign advisor during this time? None other than David Axelrod.
Oh, my gosh.
Obama unleashed Boko Haram on purpose to get Jonathan out of office and get Buhari in office. And once that genie was out of the bottle, there's no putting it back. All of the genocide is squarely on Obama's head.
All right. So who is Hussein Obama? Is he a jihadist? Is he a Muslim? Or is he a Christian?
I think the evidence points that way for sure. He's probably crass as can be. He's friendly to them. The fact is, there's a lot of money, a lot of power in the Islamic world, and he just chose to align with that. Whether it's ideological for him or just he doesn't care, he's a sociopath that only cares about himself. Either way, he was obviously aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood and the radical Islamists everywhere he went.
And he removed all the sanctions on Iran, and we're paying for that right now.
He dropped
And
pallets of cash, literal pallets of cash.
yeah, billions of dollars he gave to release back to them.
Yeah.
And Trump says that helped them fund world terrorism.
Yeah.
So is it possible, should we consider the possibility that Barack Hussein Obama was a Manchurian candidate?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And again, interestingly, tying it back to Nigeria again, and I'm about to drop a bombshell. I'm getting a source that's I believe and I know 100% credible, but I'm getting him to put it in writing and notarized before I start speaking about it.
No, do it right now on The Truth. We're trying to grow. That's the viral video we've been looking for.
I'll come back. It has to do with the Chibok girls. And I'll hint the fact that Obama, we had the power to rescue them and were ordered to stand down. 276 girls taken off into sex slavery and death. We had the power to rescue them and were ordered to stand down. The next week, Michelle goes out with the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag, which was a slogan of Buhari's political party, which Axelrod had a hand in managing. So we could have rescued the girls. We let them go. And then Michelle Obama comes out with the Buhari campaign slogan from the White House.
Which was what?
Bring Back Our Girls. It became a left-wing thing. But that was a Buhari campaign slogan that David Axelrod was the advisor of. And it was engineered. Those girls we could have rescued those girls, and we were ordered not to. Let them go.
So who are there? So who are Nigeria's allies? Clearly, the Chinese. I don't know. Would you call them an ally? I mean, they're in there raping and pillaging their minerals and natural resources. That didn't sound like an ally, but I guess they would be allied.
They try to straddle the fence. And so the reason for keeping up this illusion of secular democracy, I believe, is to keep access to the Western markets. They're the conduit where East meets West, so to speak. And that the illusion of secularity is rapidly crumbling. And I think Trump's going to put an end to it really soon. I think his we'll get into that statement last night and last week was a pivot to Nigeria where he's made some promises and he's been delayed. But China, you can't, I've been to Nigeria 16 times. Chinese are everywhere. They say anywhere from 100 to 150,000 Chinese nationals live in Nigeria. And the people I know that in the middle belt where this mining, strip mining is taking place, say that these people are the most soulless, demonic people. I mean, they're just totally in it to get the minerals at any cost. Doesn't matter who they kill or anything, who they corrupt. So China is deeply embedded. You could drive through Abuja, the capital, and there's these electronic governing boxes provided by the Chinese Communist Party. It's everywhere. They are aligned with Turkey. They've been Iran. Gosh, since we've been bombing Iran, there have been protests, pro-Iran protests in the north, where they're stomping American flags and waving Iranian ones. So they're very connected to Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Russia on one side, but then the U.S. and Europe on the other side. It's an interesting dynamic.
Sounds like they want to be married and still cheat on their wife. I mean, it's like they're trying to get in bed with everybody. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing for a country if you're trying to get your product sold and increase the standard of living. But you, Mike, founded the African Arise, a nonprofit serving 550 displaced children through schools built in Nigeria. Tell us about it.
It's over 600 now, and in a few weeks it'll be 1,100 children. We're opening a fourth campus. So I've been a missionary to Nigeria since 2010, been there 16 times. It was my 10th trip in 2019. All this stuff was going on, but I wasn't aware of it. They kept it compartmentalized. They suppressed it. In 2019, in a random thing, I stumbled into a camp for displaced Christians in the middle of Abuja, the modern capital. And nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Sewage ditches, hand-built shanties, The government denies they exist. It calls them criminals and vagrants and beggars. The UN denies these camps exist, even though they documented them in 2015. They haven't gone anywhere now. They say they don't exist. And I met a woman there who had been a school teacher in the North 5 years before. Boko Haram killed all the men around her, burned their school, burned their church, and she and her daughters escaped with a whole bunch of them, made it to this camp. Horrible conditions, so dignified, though, amazing. But I asked her, what can we help you with? What do you need? I thought she'd say a water well or food or medicine, because they need all those things. But she said one thing. She said, help me teach these children, because that's their only way they're ever going to get out of here is with an education. It'll give them hope. It'll give them strength of character so they don't get recruited to the radicals, which is their main recruitment base. And it'll give them a vision for a future. And so we've set up a school in that camp. Now we're opening our 4th campus. We provide these children with a free, high quality education, and also we help with feeding, medical care, etc. And the testimonies are dramatic. They showed up wanting to get guns, go back and kill, and now they're getting an education. They want to go back and rebuild. And here's where it's super important, and where Nigeria will metastasize rapidly if we don't intervene. There are as many as 10 to 12 million displaced Nigerians. These people were productive. They were prosperous. A lot of them professionals, peaceful, forced off their lands by these radicals. They experience nothing but trauma. They get ground down. The government will bulldoze their homes. I mean, it's horrible what's going on. Boko Haram, the terror group, literally means, the name means Western education is forbidden. They recruit from the displaced. The statistics show up to 60% of displaced will be radicalized without intervention. And if you do the math, that's 5 to 6 million more jihadis by 2030 without intervention. Imagine this vibrant nation with its trajectory, with 5 to 6 million more jihadis, with $1 trillion in mineral wealth, with the ambition for global Sharia law. It's a terror pipeline. In fact, one drop went through it a couple weeks ago. The Old Dominion shooter was radicalized in Nigeria.
Gee, many Christmas.
They desire to use it. When we bombed ISIS out of the Middle East in Trump's first term, they relocated to northern Nigeria. It's the headquarters for ISIS, Al-Qaeda. All these groups now have coalesced there, and they have an ambition to use it as a launch pad for global Sharia law jihad. And so that's why this is so important. The 6th largest nation on earth, on track to be the 3rd largest, $1 trillion in mineral wealth, top 5 OPEC, producer of films, music, prolific, with 10 to 12 million displaced, primed to be radicalized. That's a powder keg. That's a clear and present danger to our national security today.
Wow. All I can say is wow. I had no idea. I mean, I was vaguely aware of Nigeria, but I never paid it 2 minutes worth of mental time. It just never came up on my radar, as you have very logically and academically presented it to us today, for which I'm thankful. 16 trips to Nigeria, and you described yourself as having gone there as a missionary, but it seems like you've morphed into a caretaker for all of these girls that are hiding in a camp. Aren't you scared when you go there? I mean, how do you move around and not, avoid getting killed?
Well, that's a good question. I've been a couple times when it was level 4, do not travel, State Department. That's the highest level, red flag, combat zone warning, and I would go anyway. But I am a missionary. It's just a different form of mission work. Building schools is mission work. God has opened so many doors for me there. It's amazing. But I've always kept a low profile. I wasn't recognizable. I was just a guy. I didn't call attention to myself. I was able to move around relatively freely. That changed dramatically last October. Today, I'm said to be the most famous American in Nigeria. There's people naming their kid. It's crazy. What happened is in late September is when Nigeria started to become an issue. When Bill Maher started talking about it, and then Ted Cruz started talking about it, and then Trump came out and said we might designate them a country of particular concern, which he had done in his first term, and Biden undid it. So the Nigerian government was starting to panic. They don't want this designation. I got a call on October 5th during Bible study in Blanco, Texas, from the National Security Advisor of Nigeria and a man who's now an ambassador of Nigeria. They called me and asked me to come and help with this whole PR thing. They wanted me to be the Jane Fonda of the Nigerian genocide. They had set up a stooge tour to go and see all the happy people and smile and do an international press conference. Everything's cool here. And I was on a plane a week later to go do that very thing. However, I had other plans. I'd prepared a factual report, an indictment for genocide. My advisors told me they'd probably kill me. I updated my will. I had a farewell dinner with my kids. I got on the plane. I got stuck in a room for a photo op with 3 known terrorist imams, a few other little episodes, and then got to the press conference. And with the whole world watching, I indicted the nation for genocide. I had a car waiting outside. I got in the car, drove to the airport, flew home. Before I got on the airplane, I had 114 Twitter followers. Now I have over 210,000 social media followers. It blew up. That press conference got 3.2 billion global impressions in 72 hours.
My
It flipped
gosh.
the global narrative from 80% denial to 70% affirmation in 72 hours. And 2 weeks later, Trump declared it a country of particular concern and then bombed Sokoto. And the folks in Washington say it was because of that. It was because of that press conference that it was the narrative flip that got him to take action. And so now I don't know that I can go back safely without a diplomatic cover and a Marine contingent. I have actually Ambassador Sam Brownback told me I need to start carrying here in Blanco, Texas, and I do. I've had the president of Nigeria name check me. I've had the Sultan of Sokoto name check me, and I've had the Imam de Boko Haram, Sheikh Gumi, name check me repeatedly. So I'm a known quantity now. I don't know that I can go back and wander the streets looking for street food again like I used to. But hey, it goes with the territory.
Those are incredible. That's an incredible story. Mike Arnold, an author and a former mayor of Blanco, Texas, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's a small town. I fixed the water, I fixed the potholes, and rode off into the sunset.
Well, come to West Palm Beach, Florida. We need you here. And a philanthropist, missionary. What a life well led. And he's written a book called Epicenter, Nigeria, Radical Islam and the War for Global Order. Where do we find the book?
It's on Amazon if you're in the United States. A different platform in Nigeria where it's a very hot seller.
It is allowed to be sold in Nigeria?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an online platform. I don't know. They can't do much about it. It's such a huge country.
Well, they just shut down the internet in Iran when they don't like information flow.
They have shut down social media there before in Nigeria, but I think it's gotten critical mass now. I think this regime's on the ropes. In fact, I think Trump just pivoted last night with his biggest announcement of maybe of his term, the Iran ceasefire. He stuck Nigeria right in the middle of his announcement. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not.
Yeah, he said he went after CNN for this fake headline that originated on a website in Nigeria. He didn't need to say that, but he stuck Nigeria in, because I think during this 2 weeks, he's going to pivot. The military's already in place there. I think he's going to, there's been a couple other statements made in the past week that signaled, a quick shift in narrative back to Nigeria. I think we're going to see it.
Do we have military presence in Nigeria? Do we have bases or anything?
We have 200 troops there with Reaper drones that have been there for several months. And again, my belief is based on a number of things. And I've been in Sam Brownback's little small working group. A number of my policy points have made it into a bill that's before Congress. So I'm somewhat up to speed on what's going on in Washington. They've been mapping. They know where all the terrorists are. They know where they're camped. Ted Cruz came out last week and said, we know who the political sponsors are, and we're tracking them as well. I think everything's primed for the push of a button to really radically change things there. I hope that's the case.
Sounds like it's time for the Western world to show up, including the EU and the atrocities that you've described certainly warrant our attention. I appreciate your bringing it to our attention, and it's been a fascinating opportunity to speak with you, Mike Arnold, and thank you again for coming on The Truth. Have a great rest of your weekend. And where do we follow you? I want to follow your story.
MikeArnold.org. You can find me there, and you can also link to our schools. Look, just this last week during Holy Week, a number of attacks, thousands and thousands more displaced, headed to the camps where we're set up. I'm doing all I can. We need some support to help rescuing these children from the cycle of death. We have the ability to grow our schools. We're opening a 4th campus with an orphanage, a school, and a clinic. So MikeArnold.org, you can find the book, you can find my blog, you can find my socials, and you can find our schools there. MikeArnold.org.
I bet you could donate $10 at MikeArnold.org.
Goes a long way. Goes a long way.
Well, let's do it. I think that's a great cause. And thank you for what you're doing. And clearly you are doing God's work, and that is the truth. And I'm John Gordon.